Good morning. My name is Weston Grant. I'm on the leadership team here at the lodge. I'm going to be your designated tour guide for today's graduation ceremony. So if you notice here to your right, my left, we've got our graduates today, potential graduates, as long as nothing goes wrong. They've each chosen a graduate of Narrowgate to present them today. What this means, it's more than just this is the guy that gives me my sword. Rather, this is the guy that I've chosen to seek counsel from and wisdom and hold me accountable in the journey that is life after Narrowgate. And so each of these guys have developed a special bond, a special relationship with the man that's presenting them today. And so I'm going to ask them a series of questions, and I just wanted you to know what was going on over here before we started. So, gentlemen, you present men today as candidates for graduation from Narrowgate. What are their names?
Nathan Weston, Trey, Samuel Leonard, Caleb Pruding.
Have these men successfully completed all the requirements necessary for graduation from Narrowgate? If so, answer they have.
They have.
Do you stand as a witness to their confession of faith in Jesus Christ as the one true and living Son of God? If so, answer we do.
We do.
Do you attest that to the best of your knowledge, these men are set for the defense of the gospel? If so, answer we do.
We do.
Awesome. Please be seated. Our next stop is a life-giving, wisdom-filled message from our campus director, Eric Davis. So go ahead and give him a round of applause.
Yeah, I'm not going to explain that those weren't booze. I keep having to do that. Just trust me, they're not. Good-looking guys right there. So in the early 1900s, there was a young boy that grew up in the northern hills of Ireland. He would be known as Jack by his family and friends for the rest of his life because he adopted that name when he was 4 as his childhood dog Jaxie was killed by a car. At the age of 9, Jack's mother died. Shortly after, his dad, in the midst of his grief, sent Jack off to boarding school. Jack hated it. And for good reason. The headmaster was an ordained minister, but this headmaster was also incredibly abusive and cruel. So much so that he would be institutionalized later in life. At Jack's next school, he had a new headmaster, but this headmaster, he would later say that was an avid practicing occultist. Tough circumstances. From there, his dad took him out of school and put him with a tutor named Kirkpatrick, who happened to be an atheist, a devout one at that. Jack spent time under Kirkpatrick learning how to dismantle the arguments for Christianity and religion, and was being groomed to be one of the most staunch antagonists of Christianity and religion that the world had ever known. Jack wrote a letter to his childhood friend around that time, and he said, "I believe in no religion. There is absolutely no proof for any of them, and from a philosophical standpoint, Christianity isn't even the best. All mythologies, to give them their proper name, are merely man's own invention." This man, Jack, wanted to be his own man. He didn't want to submit to, believe in, have a God in authority over him if this God didn't save his mom, if this God put him under the care of a cruel and abusive ordained minister, putting him in the presence of being educated by people who did not have his best interests in mind. But by the grace of God, Jack encountered a group of colleagues and friends who empathized with his pain, helped him wrestle with life's biggest questions. One of these would become a lifelong friend, and this friend of Jack's was named J.R.R. Tolkien. So Clive Staples Lewis, or C.S. Lewis, or Jack, recounts in his memoir, "As I drew near my conclusion on the matter of faith, I felt a resistance to my unbelief, almost as strong as my previous resistance to theism. Every step I had ever taken, every step, was a step taken towards truth. I know very well when, but not exactly how. But one Sunday morning, I went out for a stroll to go to the zoo. As I set out, I did not believe that Jesus was the Christ, the Son of the living God. But when I arrived at the zoo, I did. Didn't necessarily spend the morning in thought or deliberation. But it was more like when a man, after a long sleep, still lying motionless in bed, becomes aware that he is now awake. C.S. Lewis, huh? What that story shows us is that God is a God of redemption. And not just forgetting the pain of your past or the mistakes that you've made. He uses all of that as the background, as the black light to shine his glory. And the four of you, although before you came here can probably relate some to the words of the young Lewis, have come to know that God redeems and rescues all of it. This is the theme of the Bible. I mean, just to share a few. Adam in the garden, right? Man's best shot. Disobedience. Outside of God's loving care. Didn't obey the command of the tree in the garden. But, though Adam did bring sin into the world and death through sin, and thus death spread to all men, it gave God an opportunity to display that his love and redemption is stronger, and that he would use the very venom of evil to overcome it. You think about people like Samson, strong, no one stronger, could defeat entire armies just with his bare hands. And his pride and his lust caused his demise. He's captured by the enemy, paraded around in shame and weakness, tied up under the pagan god, the temple to the pagan god Dagon. But in one last plea, for not his own strength, for God's strength, he stretched out his arms and he brought down the pillars. And though he died, the enemy died with him. Through his death, he defeated the enemy. God brought redemption, though it wasn't on this side of eternity necessarily. Judah, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Sometimes we don't know a lot about these, Old Testament figures, but Judah was not a nice man. He sold his brother into slavery. Sam, you're a way better brother than that. You too,
Hey,
Caleb.
brother. Love you.
He was a selfish and interested in propagating his own interest, and then after that he has sons, and his oldest son marries, and that son passes away. Now, back then, in order to preserve the family inheritance, the family bank account, what a father-in-law was supposed to do was give that wife of the deceased older brother to the next eldest brother, so that they could perpetuate, the family inheritance and the lineage and all that. Well, Judah didn't want to do that, so he kind of stiffed her, ignored her, kept putting her off. Yeah, we'll do it again next year or whatever. And she's hungry. She can't have food. She's starving. And so sometime later, Judah's on a trip, and he's walking, and his carnal desires get the best of him. And he sees a woman of the town, and they spend the evening together. Well, in order for him to take care of his end of, the deal, he left his signet ring and his staff there, his collateral. Hey, I'll be back, and I'll take care of you. I'll pay you. Well, he doesn't show up. And then this woman exposes Judah's weakness in front of everybody and said, the man who owns this ring and the man who owns this staff, this is the man who did it. I mean, that's a pretty big moral failure, pretty big pain, and even self-imposed. But the story didn't end, right? Because when Judah and his brothers were starving in Israel, Joseph was second in command in Egypt. And as they stood before their brother, his brother, Joseph, wanted to keep one of them back to make sure that when he sent them home, there was this big conniving plan. I don't need to get into all of it. But Joseph chose the youngest, Benjamin, to stay with him, sort of as collateral in prison, while the other brothers went back to replace money that Joseph claimed they stole. It was all part of the plan. And he picked Benjamin, but Joseph knows that Benjamin is, Dad's little boy, the youngest. Judah stands up and says, don't take my brother Benjamin. My dad can't take it. We've already lost one brother. Take me instead. Please. I'll sacrifice my life for my brother. And he stood in and sacrificed. Now, we know the end is redemption, but what changed in Judah? The knocks around in life, being humbled through circumstance, but God used it somehow. Now this doesn't mean those bad things ever become good. They don't. But from those, God brings the best. Just a few more. Hosea. It's kind of a short book of the Old Testament, minor prophet, and I hadn't read a lot about it until I'm reading it, and Hosea, wanting to be a prophet of God, God speaks to him and says, I want you to marry this woman, Gomer. Gomer was an unfaithful woman, and God knew that before he asked Hosea to marry her. And Hosea's heart gets broken, goes through pain, the pain of jealousy and hurt. And why? Well, God was saying, hey, if you want to be a prophet, if you want to speak to people on my behalf, if you really want to know me, you got to have a broken heart. Because I'm a God with a broken heart. So if you want to know me and really be close to me, you got to have some scars. So through Hosea's pain, he's able to know God more and redeems Gomer. Gomer returns and says, now, this is my husband instead of my master. The list goes on and on. You could think about Paul, right? If there ever was a person who staunchly antagonized Christians, it was Saul, later become Paul. He was at least complicit in the murder of the early church. At worst, he terrorized by killing himself. He was arrogant. He was full of pride. According to the law, blameless. Pharisee of Pharisees, of the right family heritage. He had everything going for him. But he was empty, angry. And one day, on a road to Damascus, his eyes are opened. He spends the rest of his life ripped up his, what would be equivalent to a Harvard law degree, or an MIT degree and a Harvard law degree. Rips them up and says, they're not worth anything. For they took me as far away from God as I could possibly be. And God sends him to the nations. It's how the gospel got outside of the borders of Israel in the first century. Walking all the way through Greece and ending up in Rome. And you think, why would God send a guy who's so advanced in Judaism and in its law to people who had never even read it? Well, think about it for a second. If God would have sent Peter on a message to say, hey, the law doesn't save you. It can't. For we're all saved by grace through faith. It's as simple as that. We're rescued. What do we bring to a rescue? Trouble. That's it. So if Peter would have gone and said, hey, keeping the law is not really going to save you, they could have said, yeah, well, you weren't really that good at it, so maybe I could be better. But Paul, he was blameless. So the man who had achieved everything says it doesn't work. Redeeming the pain, using it. Of course, there's the ultimate story of this. But first we'll start with these four. Because your names are in good company. You could put any one of your names in there. Trey. April 1st, 2019. You know what that date means. Probably one of the darkest times, if not the. How could God use that? But he did. Through that event, series of events, led you to reach out, to cry out, to bring you here to reveal to you your gifts and talents, your joys, the things you're great at, and that compassion that you have for people. You know, if my life ever blows up, this is the guy I want to sit with, because he'll just be like salve, you know. Trey, I'm so proud of you. You are a perfect story of God's redemption. Nate, I've learned a lot about you. Most of it I've learned through stories and through Micah and Mary Grace, but also I've seen it. When Nate showed up here, his mind is brilliant. You know, he's a philosopher. He asks questions, trusts no one, and on his way, without the Holy Spirit, to be a young Mussolini, I'm pretty sure. Ruling the world with an iron fist. But the first couple of months, we were having these conversations, and at some point, Nate stopped looking at the imperfections of the body and started looking at the perfection of the head. Changed everything. For all wisdom and knowledge is in him. And that brilliant mind that you have is going to be used to lead people, to answer questions that they desperately need answered. Sam, you know, growing up, happy, you know, great at baseball on teams, kind of like me, had, you know, every opportunity. Somewhere along the way, get lost. Shame, isolation, doing things that, you know, you want to hide. Hide your hiding. And hide the fact that I was hiding my hiding. But it brought you here, face to face with your Creator and Redeemer. And your ability to make a decision, your will, like it was going in another directions at times, so solid. I remember the day sitting facing each other in chairs in my office, and you looked at me and you said, just was part of a funeral. My old life's dead. I'm dead. I'm new. Can't breathe life, can't perform CPR on something that's dead, and I don't have resurrection power. Ever since that day, I have not seen you waver in your confidence and decision that your old life is gone.
Yeah.
Caleb, I love you, buddy. A young man who, when he came here, was needy with acceptance, talked a lot, didn't have all that much to say. But over time, and as a man sits here today, no longer needy for acceptance, but has a need to give love and acceptance away to others, and has learned the power of language and how to use it, when to speak, when to not. So proud of you, buddy.
Yep.
So all of those things in our life that we look back on that are painful, that they hurt, you know, the things that we can't even utter in the middle of the night, can God use those things? Can He use the worst to bring the best? Evidence. Right here. Evidence. Evidence. The worst event the world could ever know. God coming in the form of man, wrapping himself in a body, coming to scream, I love you to his creation, and his creation rejecting him, nailing him up to a tree. But God used the enemy's weapon to permanently defeat evil and death forever. What is outside of that? Nothing. So God will and can redeem everything if we let him. I'm so proud of you guys. And the call to us is to trust God that he can do the same and is doing the same in us. So keep at it. And I'm so glad that all 4 of you are not going to be but for a couple honors reaches away in this next season.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
That was good, Boots. Good job. His nickname is Boots. So Boots sounds a lot like boo. And so we just had a field day with that. So there's your explanation. Boots. You guys do look good. I'll tell you this, they didn't look this good when they started. I believe that you really can't appreciate who the men that they are today until you know a little bit about who they were when they started. So you got a little bit of information from Boots. I'm going to share some things too. Let's start with Sam. Sam was anti-relational. Yeah, Sam, he didn't want anything to do with anybody. Didn't care to make relationships. Poor Caleb tried to be his friend day one. And Sam said, look, man, I'm not here to make friends. I'm just here to fix myself. And now this dude is the most huggiest, loving guy in as a student. He wants to be in a relationship. He loves guys. And he even loves them so much that he's sticking around as an intern to spend another 6 months pouring back into these guys. And I think that's awesome. Caleb was my motor mouth. I mean, this guy was putting in a word count of like 50,000 per day at least. But through time and work and progress, we've knocked him down to a solid 48,000. He has something to say now.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's life-giving, it is full of the gospel and meaningful, and I'm super proud of you. Trey. Let me just pick one. I think I got a list here. Trey was lazy. You know, actually one day I got onto him for pushing one of my lawnmowers down a hill instead of walking it down because it was faster, he said. I about lit him up. But I am so proud of the man that you've become. Because you have this new sage wisdom about you that was not there day one. You have things to say, you're not lazy, you're a hard worker, and you're passionate about things. And Trey is sticking around to work at NGTC on their CNC machine. Like he's actually sticking around to work for the organization. I think that's awesome. And then Nate didn't even believe in God when he first started, I think. He did. But at some point he decided that we weren't doing it right. He was antagonistic and argumentative.
Amen.
That was fun for a while. And then he surrendered and said, it's not up to me.
Amen.
It's up to him. And I'm proud of all 4 of you guys. I could not be more proud of anybody right now. I got a special bond with this class, so it's cool to see you guys here today. But I'll tell you this, Narragate doesn't claim to have changed these men's lives.
That's right.
You're never going to hear Narragate claim to have changed someone. All we do is we create and maintain an environment where they can be introduced to the one that does change lives. And that's God. And so these guys, not only has their character developed and have they become more like a man in character, they've become men of God. They've developed their own relationships with God. They know how to talk to Him. They know how to hear from Him. They have conversations. And so one thing that we do, one thing that they do, is they have a time where they get out in the woods by themselves. They have a real conversation with God, and they ask real questions. Who do you say that I am, God? Why did you create me? What is my purpose here? And so they take those questions and answers that they receive from the Lord, and they form it into what we call a vision and purpose statement. Basically, this is who I am, and this is what I'm here for. And so they're going to read those vision and purpose statements for you today, because these men hear from God.
Amen.
Caleb, bring it on.
Caleb, your greatest strength is mercy. You are a man who is always willing to give someone a second chance and see the good in people. You have compassion toward others who are hurting and a pure heart, one that is not easily judgmental but full of love. You love all things, especially people, and empathize with others' situations and sympathize with others you don't even know. You are approachable, hospitable, accepting, genuine, and make people feel welcome. You shepherd those that are lost, beaten, messed up, broken, and ones that feel unloved. You are a great teacher that is hardworking, enthusiastic, caring, and kind. Caleb, I am pleased when you help others and have a servant's heart, when you show love through your actions, even though you won't be recognized for it. I am pleased when you are yourself and allow me to speak through you to the oppressed and the lost. I am most pleased when you reach out to others in need, regardless of how it will affect you. Caleb, you are my son. You are loving, merciful, funny, genuine, handsome, strong, brave, courageous, and passionate. You fight for what's right and what you care about. You are a protector, caretaker, peacemaker, hospitable, charitable, grace-filled, and smart. You are wholehearted, joyful, and sweet. Caleb, you have a passion to help those who are oppressed, in need, and build them up so they can realize their full potential even when they can't see it themselves. You have a passion to teach about things that you love and interest you while telling others your story and how I changed your life. Caleb, I gave you all these gifts to glorify me and my kingdom, to help others, especially those who can't help themselves. Through these gifts, you will realize who you really are. You are my son who I love, and you have a place in this world. I created you for a reason and a purpose. That purpose, to spread my word and my love to all people, regardless of who they are, where they came from, or what they've done. Go and love them, my son. Go and love them like I do.
Son, you are a strong leader with discernment for what is right and wrong. You have a deep understanding for the word. You are very diligent in searching for truth. Son, you are a great teacher. The way you break it down so that other people can understand more easily. I wish more people would come to me in everything like you. You are great at fighting for people using prayer. Your greatest gifts are leading and encouraging people in the way they should follow me. You truly care about the people and the advancement of the kingdom. When I think about you, my son, I think love, leader, servant, teacher, loyal, driven, caring, knowledgeable, redeemed, bold, courageous, intentional, strong, and a perfect child of mine. I am most pleased with you when you let me love you, and when you are in the Word and talking about me to others. I am pleased when you let me guide you and lead you to other people, when your main focus is on me, and you show love towards others. When you pray for others, not looking for glory, but to see them grow closer to me and helping others understand my love for them. I love when you rely on me to tell you the next step and disciple people to be better than you are. When you lift people up in my name, I enjoy you talking to me and bringing the good, the bad, and the ugly. I love watching you serve others. Son, you have a desire for young men that are lost. Your passion is to give them hope and a new life in me. You love not to be normal, but to be a warrior for my kingdom. You have a desire for hunting and fishing, and you speak the truth no matter what. You find joy in showing people my love by action. You love to teach, but not only teach, but to inspire others to go and be able to feed themselves. Son, I give you these gifts so that you do what most won't, to lead people to me, so that they may truly know me. I've designed you with passions that will equip you to pastor people on a more intimate level and to bring others in harmony as believers. To go out and be bold and courageous, preaching of the goodness of my love. To show people what it truly means to be in love with me. To be obedient to whatever can bring me glory so that others may come to know me like you know me. To love as I have loved you. To serve as I have loved you. And to lay down your life as I did for you. I love you, Samuel.
Trey Ramey.
Yeah, Trey!
I've never stopped chasing you, my son. I just needed you to look past yourself to see all the wonderful things I have in store for you. I need you to understand the passion you have for knowledge is nothing to be ashamed of. Continue to be inquisitive about the world around you. Trust me as the composer of your life. It brings me joy to see you figure things out and use that insight to help others overcome similar challenges. You have an influential presence, and if you allow me, I will use you to build a sanctuary in a broken world. Your abilities will be used to lessen the suffering of those around you. With a strong heart and will, you have been forged to stand firm in the face of tyranny. You will be a vessel through which I lead others to a life abundant in me. Your optimism will bring peace to those who can't find hope. Be a beacon of light I made you to be in a world full of darkness. I believe in you, my dear boy. You were never alone.
Nate Weston.
I have given you strengths, Nathan, that will help reveal my glory and mercy. You are able to help others by correcting them gently and inspiring people to pursue holiness. I have made you aware of beauty and its transcendent source in me, which will guide you in spiritual discernment. I've made you a leader who will lead in battle, for you are a warrior in my kingdom. You are a reformer. You will change things in this fallen world. Nathan, you will be a great orator who proclaims me to all. You're also an analyst, taking in lots of information and predicting results. I've given you a gentle understanding of others that you may heal souls. I'm most pleased with you when you let go of yourself and the world, when joyful tears roll down your face and when you accept my love. You delight me when you help and love others, when you walk with someone through their thoughts and help them see me in everything. Keep praying for others. Nathan, my son, you are strong, a guide for my sheep, a warrior, a lover, an affectionate caretaker, someone willing to take a stand for me. You are patient, bright, and joyful. And Nathan, you are sober-minded with a penetrating eye. I've put desires in you to guide you on your path. You love using this world the way I designed it to be enjoyed. You want to cultivate an adventure-filled life that reveals truth, beauty, and my goodness. You will create communities that are tied together by my love. Reach my people who need me and give them abundant life. You love to proclaim truth, and I will make it heard in many hearts. You love to research and learn about me. You desire to take care of people and to be embraced by the woman I've chosen for you. You love robust stability. Give this pursuit to my church. I have given you certain talents and personal gifts. You must use these to infiltrate what was meant for evil and to make it good. For I have given you a role to play in history. You will give my grace to others. Never forget discipline as we go out to conquer evil.
This next part is my favorite part of graduation. This is what we call the Father's Blessing. This is where the father figure of these young men get to stand up here and pronounce what I've already pronounced over these guys, in my opinion, is that they are men. They're men of God. And I think it's a really special thing because in today's culture, adolescence is going further and further into adulthood. You know, we've got 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds still living at home, and that's it. It is what it is. But there's an acceptance of an older boy, and that's not what these guys are. These are not boys. These are men. I think they started out as boys, but I'm here to tell you today that I see no boy in these chairs. These are men. But this next part is important because they hear that from their fathers, and that, I know that means a whole heck of a lot more than it does coming from me. So, Caleb, you want to start? Rob? Remember what Bill said about the mic. He'll come after you.
hands? All right, let's see if I can make it through this. Caleb, you were born on October 16th, 1998. You arrived in this world over 10 weeks early. With a premature 2-pound baby arriving, your mother and I had to depend on God in ways that we had never contemplated. We had to completely trust in Him. I remember praying to God so many times, please let this child live. God was there all along, and He did what He does. He performs miracles. You were and are a fighter. I knew inside and heard from many others that God must have great plans for this boy. Every day presented new challenges, so I continued to ask God to show me how to raise you in a way that would honor Him. Throughout your childhood, you were smaller, so learning to talk, then to walk, and to ride a bike took a little more time. But I was so amazed seeing you meet the challenges. Your smile after learning was a true joy to witness. I remember how you would shuffle your boots through the dirt till a little cloud of dust would appear above you and you would look up in total amazement. And I could see a boy with a grand imagination. How would God use you? I only hope that I could help you find your path. In my line of work, many times I had to spend more time with other people's children. And I know I wasn't always the father I could have or should have been. So I asked God to be with you every day when I couldn't. And I've prayed for God's grace in my shortcoming. As we encountered many changes in our lives, I know that our relationship hasn't always been what either of us had hoped. I know that you felt emotionally disconnected from me many times. I'm not very good at that part of fatherhood. I never intended to make you feel isolated, but I hoped that God's healing and grace would cover those failings. Although we sometimes wander off the path that we should be on, God in His intimate wisdom will carry us through it, because God truly answers prayers. Caleb, you are my son, and I am so proud to be your father. I am humbled by the things you have done and the things you have accomplished to be the man you are today. Life will continue to bring many trials, but I truly believe that you have what it takes to be successful in this life. Your relationship with God is the key. In Matthew 6:33, Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you." God gives us a criterion. If we put Him first, truly first, all of His power and blessing is showered upon us. So keep seeking Him first. Don't let the world ever become your first priority. Love Jesus. Love like Jesus. Serve like Jesus and forgive like Jesus, and you will truly prosper. You are my son. You are a man of God, and I am so glad that God allowed me to be your dad. Well done, son. I love you. I'm not sure that was fair making me go first.
Well done.
Dear Nate, first of all, well done for sticking to your plans. I'm very proud of you that you flourished at Narrowgate and now are taking the next step into being an adult. I wanted to share this Father's blessing with you. I remember bringing you home from the hospital and holding you closely the first night you were alive. I was so thankful you were here with us. You talked about him acting like Mussolini. He looked like Hitler for a while. So, I just remembered that. Sorry. During your first few years, we spent a lot of time together. I used to carry you around the house like a football and hike with you on my back. You made me a happier and more responsible person. Even at a young age, you were trying to help others. One time on a trip, your mom became sick, took a bath at a hotel. You found some grapes and pushed them under the door, trying to make her feel better. You're 1.5 years old. As a baby, you're an intelligent, happy little guy. I remember 2 things that happened when you were growing up that illustrate who you are. First wasn't a happy memory. I remember being very, very upset and weeping uncontrollably about something. Even though you're only 7, you comforted me, talked to me, made me feel better. Even though seeing your father that way must have been really scary and upsetting for you. Second's a little happier. When you were 8, you befriended Vincent, a notoriously difficult person, and stayed friends with him through high school. Vincent had a hard childhood. He lost both his parents, they died, and his guardian, his aunt. You made an effort to be his friend, and a lot of others probably wouldn't have bothered. And I always admired you for that. I think a big part of your inner nature has always tended towards charity and compassion, and I'm very happy to see you now embracing those values. For 2 years before Narrowgate, you struggled both with college and with fear and hopelessness. He was pretty much an asshole. He was like terrible. Sorry. Sorry. I regret not being able to help you more during those hard times, and I really do regret that. I did not understand your decision to come to Narrowgate, but have realized this was something that made sense to you and helped you. What I've always wanted for you and what I still want is for you to have a concrete plan for your future. I want you to help others and do work you find fulfilling. Through your time at Narrowgate, I think you've found your path. I hope for the best in your future. I'm so proud to be your father. My blessing for you is to continue your path, find work that's ethical and meaningful, be a useful person, be compassionate, be kind, and be a thoughtful man. Freely give and accept love to those around you. In your dealings with others, be respectful, listen to what they have to say, and try to put yourself in their shoes. Try not to give in to hatred, anger, and fear. To me, all these things are what constitutes a good life, and I want more than anything for you to continue down this road. I love you.
Sam?
Yeah.
Eric? You're all yours.
I'll in just a minute.
Dear Samuel, almost 25 years ago, God blessed us with a son.
a blessing that has brought so much joy, happiness, and meaning into our lives. It was the beginning of a journey filled with joy, laughter, tears, struggle, and achievement. We prayed constantly for God to bless you and help us raise you up in the admonition of the Lord. Being the second born in our family and being our first son, you can only imagine how excited we were and how blessed we felt. With our daughter Elizabeth born 4 years earlier and now having a son, our prayers to God have been fully answered. God blessed us with the perfect family. We dreamed of all the time we would enjoy together and the man of God that you would become. We watched as you grew into an energetic young child who loved sports of all kinds, spending time with your best friends, and in later years, develop a strong affinity for hunting and fishing. And my, how you love to cook. We ate so well during your high school years, as you loved to barbecue and fix duck for us constantly. We always loved trying out your new recipes. And you loved your brother and sister so well. You're all grown up now, and seeing the man that you've become over this past year makes me so proud of you, Samuel. So proud to call you my son. Over this time, I've watched you self-reflect and turn your attention to God, developing a deep spiritual relationship with Him. I've been amazed at how your priorities and focus have changed from things of this world to things above. You've come to know what is truly important in this world. I see in you a man that is right with the Lord, and one that has come to understand the temporal nature of this world and importance of focusing on God's plan for you. Today, your mom and I prayers have been answered. Upon closing, Samuel, I offer you these words of advice. Love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and strength. Allow God's grace to control your life and motivate you. Never lose His purpose for your life, and never lose His word from your heart. If you hold to these things, you will prosper in God's kingdom forever. I love you, Samuel. Always in prayer.
Brother, you're scared all the time. Your mother, I'm sad to you. Your mom powers on you. You are a leader because of you. On you, you're lost. You're lost. You finished your high school. Your mother, I'm proud of you. You finished college. And I see you. I am Down syndrome. And then my mom, a speech, and you, brother. I speech again in March because I love brother. Because you're scared, call me all the time. You're my brother always. You're my brother for always.
Trey and Bill. Sorry, I had to.
Trey, I've lost track of how many blessings I've witnessed from this stage. Stories that range from humor to heartbreak are typically shared by fathers who witnessed the best and the worst of life. So when you asked me if I'd be willing to pronounce a blessing on you at this ceremony, my eagerness to say yes was followed by a sense of anxiety as I wondered what I could possibly say that would be memorable or unique for you. I considered how most guys in your position are just grateful to have a moment of intimacy and restoration with their father. And the actual words of the blessing, they're just not that important in the moment. At least not as important as a moment of intimacy and restoration. But Trey, the words of a blessing are important. I began to recall the blessings that exist in the book of Genesis as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob placed their hands on the sons that God had given them. I was particularly drawn to a single fact. The blessings offered weren't necessarily what anyone anticipated. The younger son was often favored over the older. Truths of life were spoken that weren't always encouraging or hope-filled. I began to wonder why a father would speak to his son that way. Then I met you. No. And then something occurred to me. God is the one who ultimately offers blessing. And a father, whether biological or in the faith, is simply an instrument of delivery for that blessing. When Jacob blessed his sons, much of what he said had little to do with his wish for them in life. Instead, it was more of an oracle of things to come. The name of each son became true and revealed in that moment as the prophetic truth of their life was spoken aloud by their father. So God asked me if I knew what the meaning of your name was. I took the question as an invitation to discover something about you that God wanted me to learn and then pass on today. This is what I found. Your name, Rémi. It's derived from a French name, Ramé, a family of royalty and aristocracy which lived on the southeastern coast of France. A fable surrounded the family that told how it came to be so revered. The title of the fable is La Ramée and the Phantom. Later, the reference La Ramée, or that Ramée, was contracted to a single word, Laramie, like Laramie, Wyoming. But the story of your family goes something like this. A soldier in the French army, La Ramée, had hopes of making corporal. He re-enlisted twice, but he had not yet made that rank. When his captain said that he would have to re-enlist a third time, it was more than he could bear. So he left. He wandered the countryside looking for a place to rediscover his life. He came to a town all draped in black, and he learned that ever since the king's daughter had died, a phantom appeared nightly at the church and paralyzed the town with fear. The king ordered that a guard be placed at the church to keep the phantom at bay, but the phantom had nightly smothered every soldier who had held that post. Rumor began to circulate that if a man could stay in the church for 3 nights, the phantom would be stopped. But Ramée decided to dare it. The first night he hid behind the altar. During the quarter hour while the phantom walked, it spotted him just before midnight and turned toward him, but it vanished as the clock struck 12. The second night he hid in the pulpit. The phantom hunted for him for a half an hour, had its feet on the stairs to the pulpit when midnight once again struck, and the phantom again disappeared. La Ramée was too afraid to stay for a third night, and he decided once again to flee. But a woman spoke to him, knowing he was running away, and gave him a pair of scissors, telling him to cut the nails, the claws of the phantom's hand when it appeared. The third night, he did not hide. He stood, scared, but firm. As soon as the phantom arrived, it threw its arms around him to smother him as it had done so many nights before. But La Ramée was ready with scissors, one by one, as he cut the piercing nails from the hands of the phantom. He began to transform. Slowly, but surely, the transformation became complete, and the phantom turned into the beautiful princess. She told him that she had not been killed, but buried alive by enemies of the king who sought to dethrone him. Overcome with joy, the king embraced his daughter alive again and gave her hand to La Ramée, who became prince of the land. Trey, much like your namesake in this story, the circumstances of life drove you to a futile wandering, looking for a way to rediscover life. But sometimes it takes desperation to empower desperate decisions. Against all odds, you chose to face the enemy that sought to take your life. You learned that hiding and running can never set you free. But instead, in the midst of the attack, you used the sharp edge of the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God, to pare off each piercing advance. The freedom and life that you have today would not be yours if the Holy Spirit had not equipped you with the truth of God with which you do battle against your enemy. But that's only the beginning of your story. Trey, you will use that same spirit and truth to courageously defend so many others who cannot fight for themselves. And battle by battle, you'll reveal life that was once shrouded in death. Act with honor in the eyes of those who depend on you for guidance, wisdom, and defense. And you will rise to a position of nobility that God has held for you since the foundations of the world. These three words, courage, honor, and nobility, they're engraved on the sword that you'll receive in just a few minutes. Never let them escape your heart. Today, you are not just a man of God. Today, Trey, you are a prince among men. And I could not be more humbled to call you my son in the faith. Rise, Trey, and take your place among the army of God. Amen.
Sam, Nate, Trey, and Caleb. Finally, my brothers, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. And pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all God's people.
Gentlemen, you were born with purpose, separated by choice, redeemed through sacrifice, and are now destined for service. Love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and you will prosper in the economy of God's kingdom. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, for you have granted us life, you have sustained us, and you have brought us to this day. This marks the end of the beginning. Stand to your feet. Yivarechecha Adonai vayishmarecha. Yael Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yisimcha. Shalom. The Lord bless you. to shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. It is my honor to present to you the graduating class of February 2020. Let's stand with me and give a round of applause.
Good to see you again, sir.